It is time for legacies to be made. Welcome back to No Huddle, everyone, and welcome to the NBA Finals, which are officially upon us, kicking off tomorrow. We have the Eastern Conference champion, the New York Knicks, and the Western Conference champion, San Antonio Spurs, going head-to-head to decide who will win it all in 2026. And to be honest, I am very, very intrigued by the series. Like I said, Game 1 tips off tomorrow at the time that I am recording this. But overall, there's a lot to unpack over here. And even though the Spurs are pretty big favorites going into the series, I think there is a lot to look at. And honestly, a lot has to go in their favor if they want to lift that trophy. I can see this finals being very intriguing, just like last year's. There are a lot of X factors that need to go in both teams' ways if they want to win the Larry O'Brien trophy. So, hey, let's just break it down. Let's see what these two teams have to do in order to overcome one another. And let's preview these NBA Finals. So firstly, I think we should get started off with the New York Knicks. Obviously, they won 53 games and got the third seed in the East behind new head coach Mike Brown. And in this playoff run, it's been insanely dominant. They took care of the Hawks in 6, and then they swept the Sixers and they swept the Cavs. They are on an 11 or 12 game winning streak or something like that in these playoffs. They've been absolutely dominant, and overall, they are arguably playing the best basketball of any team right now. Meanwhile, you have the other side, the San Antonio Spurs. They took the NBA by storm, winning 62 games, getting the 2 seed in the Western Conference behind also first full year head coach Mitch Johnson. And in the playoffs, they were also pretty dominant. They took care of the Blazers in 5, they took care of the Wolves in 6, and then in a hard-fought 7-game series, they knocked down the reigning champion OKC Thunder. Overall, the Spurs are favorites in this series due to their dominance overall, I guess, them being the better team in the regular season and them, I guess, being more battle-tested in these playoffs. So looking at the matchups going into this series, obviously, let's talk about the biggest behemoth, the biggest elephant in the room of the whole series, Victor Wembanyama. If Wemby is able to dominate on the scoring end, similar to what he did against the Thunder in some of these games, then the Knicks are basically asking to get swept or a gentleman swept because an aggressive, dominant Wemby, there's no team in the NBA that would be able to stop that. I think the Knicks' defensive approach is probably going to be some sort of double team involving Karl-Anthony Towns and OG Anunoby trying to use that strength and length to get to Wemby. This is, I think, where also Mitchell Robinson can come in if one of those two guys go off the court, basically to help with that double team. And what the Knicks need to do is basically have one guy play an Isaiah Hartenstein role, which is basically getting physical with Wemby and not letting him get comfortable, and then having another guy play the Caruso role in terms of just pestering him and try to deny him the service that some of the guards want to give him. One of the biggest X factors for Wemby is his three-point shooting / aggressiveness. If his shot is falling and he is looking to score and all the buckets are going in, then you are basically at his mercy and just have to survive that avalanche of scoring that Wemby is going to give you. What the Knicks have to do is basically turn Wemby into what he was in Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals, in which he was insanely passive and insanely just uncomfortable, and they just have to throw Wemby off his rhythm and not let him get into a flow for him to just dunk on you and be able to shoot whatever shot he wants with it going in. They have to basically not let Wemby get into a comfortable area that he can just get accustomed to so he can just knock down all these shots. Now, on the other side, when it comes to the Knicks' best player, which is Jalen Brunson, the Spurs actually have a pretty good amount of personnel when it comes to guarding him. Hell, they just locked down the league MVP for most of the series, and you could argue Brunson is not as good as what SGA is. What the Spurs have to do is basically throw Brunson off his rhythm, just like they did with SGA in terms of Brunson's mid-range shots. They have to throw him off his spot, and then you just have to count on whatever Brunson wants to get at the rim. Wemby, his defensive impact should just be able to take care of it. Now, what Brunson can do to combat this is basically keep the Spurs defense honest by using some of his foul baiting abilities and try and get some of the Spurs players in foul trouble, specifically Stephon Castle, who I think can be pretty susceptible to that. But for Brunson, I think the key to his offense is basically he's going to have to use a lot of his tough shot making ability. And overall, he's going to have to try and get his teammates involved because, I'm not going to lie, I think a lot of the shots that he has to get up will be insanely contested. And he probably won't be shooting a bunch of those shots because they won't be very good looks. But in terms of actually helping out all their superstar players, let's start with the Knicks first. Obviously, we have to talk about Karl-Anthony Towns. He has been one of the best players in the playoffs, and I think his aggressiveness and his ability to space the floor will be insanely important. I think he will be way more aggressive, and that will be very key because then you look at you look at what the Spurs succeeded with was taking this virgin Chet Holmgren completely out of the game because Chet was playing like an absolute mouse. Karl Anthony Towns is not a mouse. He will look to actually attack the basket, and he'll look to actually be aggressive. Another factor that the Knicks have in their favor is their three-point shooting. They've been absolute sharpshooters in these playoffs, and their shot making will be very, very important. Landry Shamet has to be very, very efficient, just like he's been in all these playoffs, because if the Knicks are able to knock down their shots, that will be huge in terms of spreading the Spurs defense out. That will minimize some of Wemby's rim protection a little bit because he'll have to go out on the perimeter more. And because of that, Brunson's another level of Brunson scoring can be unlocked if he is able to attack the rim without Wemby just camping there all the time. Another X factor for the Knicks is Josh Hart, specifically his hustle and rebounding. I think getting these extra possessions will be extremely important for the Knicks. I think where Mitchell Robinson will also come in handy in terms of boxing out Wemby or getting some of the rebounds himself. Because as we saw in the Thunder series, the Thunder had a lot of success in the games in which they were able to get these second chance points and be able to generate these extra possessions by getting these offensive rebounds. Both of their bigs will have to be on their A game in terms of being aggressive and having their hustle on, whether it's Karl Anthony Towns or Mitchell Robinson. I better not see any of these bigs play like Chet Holmgren. So basically, the key to the Knicks offense is getting a lot of extra possessions and knocking down shots. If those Knicks guys that were super hot from three in the Eastern Conference playoffs, if they go ice cold similar to what the Thunder did, the Knicks are asking to get absolutely belted by the Spurs in a certain game. Another key aspect is basically keeping the turnovers at a minimum, because letting the Spurs get extra possessions you are not helping yourself out whatsoever. Now, when it comes to the Spurs' extra offense outside of Wemby, I think one of the biggest X factors for them is Dylan Harper. His insane under-the-rim finishing was extremely valuable, and overall his shot making was also pretty valuable. And I think what his most important factor will be is his ability to go toe-for-toe with Josh Hart in terms of hustle and rebounding. He's going to have to get some of those rebounds that Josh Hart likes to get and just basically just put more passion on the court compared to Josh Hart to steal those extra possessions. Stephon Castle can also do some of that under the rim stuff, but Stephon Castle's most important factor of the game is his ability to ball handle. As we know, he has to keep the ball very safe because he struggled with turnovers in the first two games of the Thunder series, and overall, you cannot be giving the Knicks these extra possessions when we know they like to get out in transition. Luckily, De'Aaron Fox is still going to be out there healthy, or at least to some extent, and we know that De'Aaron Fox's presence in the final 5 games of the series helped out a lot with Stephon Castle minimizing the turnovers. So overall, the Spurs, basically their biggest game plan is getting these extra possessions once again and dominating the rim. Try to outmuscle some of those Knicks bigs and getting those extra possessions, getting some of those layups with Dylan Harper or Wemby, and hoping that they keep the ball safe. Do not give the Knicks a chance to run out in transition. That is where Stephon Castle comes in. He has to keep the turnovers at a minimum. And of course, we have to talk about some of the Spurs role players like the Julian Champagnes and the Keldon Johnsons. We don't really need them to shoot 50% from three and knock down all these shots, make 6 threes per game, but they do need to make these extremely timely threes, whether it's to stop a Knicks run or to blow the roof off the stadium of the San Antonio Stadium. Overall, I think they just need to make some important threes, and while you don't need to go 6 for 6, you can't be going 0 for 6 in this series. So overall, for both of these teams, for the Spurs, basically the rim is going to be their biggest strength in terms of attacking it and trying to get some of these rebounds. Meanwhile, for the Knicks, it is going to be their three-point shooting and just hope that they remain hot just like they did against the Cavs, against the Sixers, and even against the Hawks. And even though some people don't want to hear it, I believe the refs will also have a large implant on this game. Not because the games are rigged or whatever, but because the way they call it will determine how some of these games will play out. As we saw in the Thunder series, the Spurs got into the bonus really, really early in a lot of those games. And those points from free throws and just the Spurs' ability to get aggressive will add up a lot, and it will unlock the Knicks' biggest fear of the entire playoffs, as we saw for the last couple of years and sometimes this year, which is Cat getting into foul trouble. If the Knicks get into early foul trouble and the Spurs just start racking up free throws, their Spurs will be in an insanely good position, and the Knicks will start to rattle more and probably will start to lose control of the game. But of course, all of these factors are just gravy outside of Wemby and Brunson. Obviously, those two will impact the series the most. If one of them has a disaster class and the other one has a master class, obviously the player that plays way better than the guy who underachieves, they'll probably win the game. But of course, if both of these guys are great, just like I'm predicting them to, those auxiliary factors and all those role players will obviously come into importance. So who is going to win the NBA Finals? Is it going to be the Knicks, continuing on this incredibly hot streak, playing some of the best basketball we've ever seen in recent NBA history? Or will Wemby and the Spurs cement their legacies at such a young age? Both of these teams, I have a lot of respect for them. And again, I believe this will be a very contested series. But my official pick is the San Antonio Spurs in a very, very tight 6-game series. I just think that the personnel to defend Brunson is really, really favorable to the Spurs, and I expect Wemby to be great. I think he will dominate. I don't think he will have a Shaq-level series, but I think Wemby will cement his legacy. Overall, will have some master classes, cement his finals MVP, and he will win the championship at just 22 years of age. Once again, I think the Knicks will put up a fight. They will keep every single game close for a good amount of time. I think Brunson will be good enough to get some of the games off, maybe at home or maybe even in San Antonio. But just like the 1999 finals when the Spurs and Knicks matched up 27 years ago, I believe that the Spurs will walk away victorious and Wemby will get his moment where he will lift the trophy in Madison Square Garden. Oh my goodness, that's already insane to think about if he lifts the title at Madison Square Garden, just such an iconic moment. So that is my official prediction. I got the Spurs winning in 6 games. And I just really hope that the series is as entertaining as some of these other series, and I really hope it lives up to all of the hype. But anyways, that is all I have for you guys today. Let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about this NBA Finals matchup? Who do you have winning, and in how many games? Who do you guys think the Finals MVP will be? If you guys enjoyed this video, please subscribe and please like, as any support is truly appreciated. And I will see you guys in the next one.